for this upcoming November election. Hello, WBI, you on the air? Please turn your radio down.
Down. I too respond to Ms. Davis, what she said earlier concerning black people being sophisticated in reference to the Palestinians.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, well, I feel that black people aren't as sophisticated as she and others make them out to be. I don't think black people have reached the point of sophistication where they make demands and ask for some type of qualification from those people who come to them and claim to be brothers in the struggle and ask them for their support. They ask black people for their support, and black people willingly give it, and when it's time to get support from those groups go on their merry way, and no support comes down the line. Black people have not learned to make demands, to make these people give these strings on their support, whether it be financial, spiritual, moral, or whatever. And I don't see why we should support anybody, Palestinians or whoever, black or white, and anywhere else in the world, if we're not going to get something back in return. Nobody gives up anything for nothing. I don't think we should.
Well, Brother, we should be proud of the fact that as black people, throughout the history of our presence in this country, we have had a kind of instinctive ability to understand where injustice lies. And we have not been selfish. We have not been selfish. I think that is extremely important. That has been forged, I think, from our history as slaves, our struggles for liberation, and we've understood that wherever there is injustice, that is where our struggle should be. Certainly, you are right in talking about the need for mutual solidarity, but I wonder whether you've traveled at all in other countries and have seen the concern of people in the Middle East, for example, for the situation of black people in this country, the concern of people who live on the continent of Africa, or even in Asia, in Latin America. Of course, there are Arabs who are opposed to the interests of black people. There are Arabs who are opposed to the interests of the masses of Arabs. There are black people in this country who objectively fight against black liberation. I think that we have to be very clear that it's not simply a question of color. It's a question of consciousness. It's a question of class. It's a question of in whose interest one struggles. Perhaps you'll have the opportunity to meet with some Arab sisters and brothers who have been conducting solidarity movements for black people in this country, who fought, for example, in countries in the Middle East for the freedom of Reverend Ben Chavis. There's a lot of problems with what you say, and I really wish you would examine the situation a little more closely. You call the Soviet Union a colonial power, and
actually you said the largest.
The largest, and I'm really quite sad that you fail to recognize the deeds of the country in which you live, the government of the country in which you live. The Soviet Union does not own one factory outside of its borders. When you talk, you have to be a little clear. When you talk about things like colonialism and imperialism, you have to understand that there is a world of difference between the Soviet Union giving assistance to a people attempting to struggle for their liberation, to a people attempting to build a new society, and the U.S. government attempting to support all of the counter-revolutionary forces that have emerged around the world. Unfortunately, it would take quite a long...
Convenient for you, because the truth seems to frighten you, and it's unfortunate. You become nothing more than a Stalinist parody of what you once were.
Well, I did not interrupt you when you were speaking. I wish you would give me the same courtesy. And as I said, I'm quite sad to listen to you, because I think that you have been terribly misinformed, and you will not be in a position to make the kinds of contributions that will be necessary in order to further the revolutionary movement around the world. But thank you for calling.
Thank you for calling.